Baltimore Ravens play the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 13, hoping to get to 9 wins on the season. We talk about what they have in store, their offense and their defense matching up against Philadelphia's, and so much more coming up on a game day edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this game day, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available for you all podcasting platforms. We have you covered in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also, of course, we have you covered in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens podcast, daily Ravens show. We dive into everything, news, analysis, updates. We go live after every single Ravens game, which will happen later today. Win, lose, hopefully not tie. I'll be breaking down everything that happened in the Ravens Week 13 match with the Eagles. And we have a lot more Ravens content, of course, as you might imagine, here on the show. Today's game day edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Happy December. Feels absolutely wild that I'm even saying that, as I've said multiple times before. If you've been listening to me for a while, feels like season just started. We just saw Isaiah Likely's toe hit that line in week 1, and it doesn't feel like we're here. But we are officially, well, not technically, but if you want to do it months-wise, 3 months into the season. September, October, November, all done. And now we're in somewhat of the home stretch in December as we lead up to the playoffs. Baltimore 8-4, hoping to get to 9-4 as they face off against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, of course, as we do on every game day episode, and again, appreciate everybody for being here, whether you're on your way down to the lots, on your way to your friend's house to watch the game, just driving around, or if you're listening or watching just in the comfort of your own home. Appreciate you being here. We'll talk about the Eagles offense in the second segment. I match up with Baltimore's defense. First, though, I want to talk about Baltimore's offense, how they match up with Philly's defense, and then we'll get into some final predictions. I have some bold ones we'll get to in the last part of the show. So let's talk about it now. Baltimore's offense is best in the league. We know that. You want to look at the stats. You want to do the eye test. It's all there. Obviously, a hiccup against Pittsburgh, and they've certainly had moments of slow starts, but there's no doubt. Best passing offense in the league right now. Or excuse me, they're number 2 in passing offense in terms of touchdowns, but in terms of yards per attempt, this is what I go off of, they're number 1. So they're not number 1 in every category, but they're number 1 in what I go by, which is net yards per attempt. And then obviously the same is true for rushing yards, where number 1 in yards per attempt there as well. And for those who don't know why I do yards per attempt instead of total yards, is because a team that runs the ball more is going to have more total rushing yards. A team that passes the ball more is going to have more total passing yards. So what I go off of is how efficient are you in your touches. So if you run the ball more than any other team, but you don't run the ball efficiently, I don't consider you a good rushing offense. You run the ball a lot, but you're not a good rushing offense. And the same goes for if you don't pass the ball a lot, but you have high net yards per attempt, I consider you a good passing offense, right? You get the ball down the field, you do your thing. So that's why I go with that. Now, the thing that I'm looking for in this game in particular for Baltimore's offense, Baltimore has been held scoreless in 5 of their last 6 opening quarters. Lamar Jackson talked about it after the Los Angeles game, in which they won, and that was a game that, again, they started slow. They went down 10-0. I think it's a positive thing that Baltimore has proven time and time again that they can come back and win, which, again, there were some very overblown narratives, and there have been some very overblown narratives about that over the course of Lamar's career. But the Ravens seem to be a team that is chasing, and they do it for the most part. There are some games at least, where they're not able to come back, but they've had multiple 10-point leads they've had to climb back from, 14-point leads, or I guess deficits they've had to climb back from, which they've done. But it just feels like the Ravens were good about not doing that early, where it was always, the Ravens are up, and now can they hold on to that lead? And then they weren't able to in some cases, but still, it wasn't like they were the chasing team. They've been the chasing team, and it's worked out fine, I guess. But you don't want to have to be the chasing team. And the Ravens can get into a positive game script from themselves. That would be a really, really good thing. Now, how does Philly's defense match up with what Baltimore does? Well, if you just want the pure general box score stats, we can start there. Philly has the best pass defense in the league. They're number one. They're not going to have Darius Slay in this game, but they have a lot of young, talented players in their secondary. Kenyon Mitchell's been incredible. Cooper DeJean, who was linked to Baltimore before they took Nate Wiggins at 30, he also is in that conversation. They have a lot of playmakers in their secondary, and it has resulted in some really good play. Even C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who has had plenty of up and down moments. The highs are highs and the lows are low with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but he has been a pretty good player for them. Reed Blankenship even has been a good player for them. I mean, they everywhere you look, they have really quality players. And Avonte Maddox is someone who was starter for them in all 11 games. I mean, or at least played in all 11 games. He doesn't start, but he's played in all 11 games. They have players up and down that defense that do work for them. And especially when you talk about their defensive line, well, they're only 11th in terms of run defense, but I think that they're actually a better run defense than those stats actually tell the story of. They have players playing really well who were considered cast-offs other places. Zach Bond, who was drafted as an outside linebacker at Stinson, New Orleans, and then comes to Philadelphia. Philadelphia plays him as an inside guy. Now he's one of the best defenders on that team. So they're finding ways to incorporate players, I guess these unsung heroes, because they're not going to have Bryce Huff. They're not going to have Brandon Graham. Those are two guys in their pass rush who are really big pieces. But you have players on the interior like Milton Williams and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, who obviously can step up and play. Nolan Smith is someone who was a first rounder a couple of years ago, hasn't lived up to that. Josh Sweat is one of my favorite players in the league, and he's been somebody that has been a reliable player for Philly for a pretty long time here. I mean, sack-wise, Josh Sweat has 7 of them. He's someone on the interior, he can move in and out, but obviously is an outside linebacker that can do a lot of good things. Milton Williams, I mentioned, he's been a breakout guy, 5 sacks. Those are all really quality playmakers. Plus, Nolan Smith has 3.5 sacks. Jalen Carter on the interior. And Nakobe Dean is someone who had an up-and-down start to his career. So it's a lot of names. It's the Georgia Bulldog defense, and then they have a bunch of former Jet players. Essentially, we think that the Ravens have a bunch of former players go to the Jets or the Giants or the Chargers. The Eagles are one of those teams that go and bring in former Jet players. And then a lot of former Eagle players go to the Jets, it feels like, too. Hassan Reddick is the main one over there. But I do think that the way that this Philly defense operates, there are a lot of different ways that Baltimore can exploit that Philly defense. But one way I think they're going to have to invent to exploit this Philly defense, Baltimore's offense, that is. One way I think they're going to have to exploit Philly's defense is they have to be good on third down and in high leverage spots. Baltimore was good at that. Baltimore was really, really, really good at that against the Chargers in Week 12. 8 of 15 on third down, 3 of 3 on fourth down, including that crazy John Harbaugh 4th and 1 call from the Ravens 16-yard line. But Philly's defense is really good at preventing that. Really good at saying, yeah, we're getting off the field. Sorry. They are the third best third down defense in the NFL at 32.6%. That is a crazy number. That is an incredible number. So for me, Baltimore's going to have to flip that number on its head. Baltimore's going to have to flip that number on its head and say, we're going to convert at a higher clip than you've been giving up this season. For the record, Baltimore's number, they are the third best third down offense. So 3s against 3s. You got the third best third down defense, and you got the third best third down offense. Now, Baltimore in the red zone, they're the best offense in the league at that. They convert on 78.7 of their red zone attempts. Meanwhile, Philly, not as good. They're 16th, 55.8. So I think that if there was a way to exploit Philly's defense, that would be the one. Don't settle for field goals. Convert in the red zone. Don't kick. Get the ball in the end zone. Put up 6 instead of 3. Obviously 7 with the extra point, right? You can't leave 4 points on the board against this Philly offense. You can't. I expect there to be a lot of points scored in this game, but at the same time, I almost kind of don't, because you have 2 high-profile offenses, 2 high-profile defenses. This could honestly go either way. But coming to the second part of the show, we'll talk about Philly's offense going up against Baltimore's defense and a lot more, so stay tuned. Let's get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Game Time. And I love going to watch football live. A memory I have from when I was a kid was going to the Super Bowl between Baltimore and San Francisco in New Orleans. That's when the lights went out, and I was on the side where the lights didn't go out, so I could see across all the darkness over there. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. Don't look at me. I know they're still trying to get to the bottom of that, but I look forward to making new memories every time I am able to attend a game. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks photos up the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time has tickets for all events, concert shows. It's not just sports. And Game Time, if you want to go to the Ravens and Eagles game, or if you want to find another game to go to after the Ravens bye week, Game Time has the place for you to go. They have super deals and other tiers of deals. Plus, Game Time has so many features on their app, like Game Time Picks, seat views, lowest price guarantee, Game Time ticket coverage, and so much more. 50 guests we're going to buy tickets with Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Turns by again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. We return our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this game day. Appreciate everybody again for being here. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button in video form. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone for me and this channel. So if you're with us in video form, or you have a friend or a family member who likes watching YouTube, likes watching Ravens shows, be sure to tell them to hop on the Locked On Ravens train as well. Or if you're in audio form, you prefer listening to your podcast, be sure to hit that follow along and subscribe button. Our audio community grows every single day as well, and it's been incredible. And if you have a friend or a family member who is an audio listener, be sure to tell them to head over our way on Locked On Ravens. Again, reminder, we'll be live after the game, breaking down everything that happened between the Ravens and the Eagles. But these pregame episodes are meant to get people pumped up, excited, and ready to go as we dive into the final few things before kickoff actually starts. 4:25. This is the game of the week, and there's absolutely no question about that. Now, we talked about Ravens offense versus Philly's defense in the first part of the show. Let's flip the field. Let's talk about Philly's offense versus Baltimore's defense. Now, the same thing we did in the first part of the show, which is general stats. Philly's offense right now, number 9 in the league in passing, number 2 in the league in rushing. That rushing offense is number 2. Baltimore's rushing defense is number 1. So you got Saquon Barkley there, and you got a bunch of guys on the interior for Baltimore, and we get Roquan Smith back in this game. Going to be beast on beast there. Now, we know that the run defense is incredible for the Ravens. The pass defense, on the other hand, 24th in the league. Hey, you know what? That's better than what it's been. You know, we used to be talking about this as the 31st, 29th, sometimes even 32nd. But 24th is, you know, all things considered, not terrible. And they've had a couple of really good weeks against Pittsburgh's offense and obviously against the Chargers. Now, Philly's offense is a whole different beast. It's kind of like they are scaling up not only the magnitude of the offenses, but just the skill level in general. I don't think Pittsburgh's offense is good whatsoever. I think Chargers' offense is better than Pittsburgh's, but not all that to write home about. This Philly offense is something else. Talent all across the board. Now, we did get some injury news leading up to game time on Saturday night, leading into Sunday morning. Devontae Smith, who is obviously Philly's other star receiver opposite of A.J. Brown, is apparently going to try to give it a go, see how things feel. But there's not a lot of optimism that he's going to be able to play with his hamstring injury. It's a big loss for Philly if it's true, and I'm going to operate under the assumption that he is not going to be able to. Well, obviously the Eagles do use Saquon Barkley a lot out of the backfield. A.J. Brown is obviously their big guy at wide receiver, and then Dallas Goedert is the player at tight end who does a lot of damage for them as well. But they don't really have a lot else outside of those guys. They tried to trade for Jahan Dotson, and that deal didn't really work out for him. I mean, other than that, it's like Britton Covey, Paris Campbell, Johnny Wilson. They really don't have a lot else. So I think that it's easier said than done, but you key in on A.J. Brown in the passing game. If Dallas Goedert goes off for 7 catches for 109 and 1 touchdown, so be it. Don't let A.J. Brown beat you. And obviously the big thing is Saquon, where you're going to have to be able to limit him if you're Baltimore's defense. because obviously, as I mentioned, Philly does use him a lot in the passing game. He's a multifaceted running back who does a lot for that offense. And so if Devontae Smith isn't able to play, they're going to be feeding even more targets into there. It's usually a big 4, but if without Smith, it's a big 3. Force the ball to go somewhere else, I think that to me is the thing with Jalen Hurts, who has been a better player than he was in 2023, but still not up to that 2022 Jalen Hurts, right? Not up to that quarterback that led them to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Force Jalen Hurts to make mistakes. That's where I would go here. A.J. Brown versus Marlon Humphrey, if that's the matchup, it's going to be really good football. I don't know how often those two will be matched up because, again, Marlon doesn't necessarily travel like that. So I'm sure we'll get some A.J. Brown on Brandon Stevens, which I know is not going to be a fun thing for a lot of people. But you get maybe Trey White a little bit. We also, by the way, I forgot to mention this, did get some Ravens injury news. Arthur Millette is on IR now. So is Charlie Kohler. Not a surprise to anybody there. Millette, I'm not sure if he's coming back this season. And again, I don't know anything about it, but just, reading the writing on the wall. He's been out for a couple weeks now, and maybe it was a situation where sometimes this happens where Millette makes a decision, but he takes some time to think on it, whether it's he wants to take the season-ending route or try to work back through it. Maybe he comes back. Again, I'm not saying I know anything about the injury, but they added a knee alongside the calf, and apparently it was pretty dejected in the locker room when it happened a couple weeks ago. So that's a big loss for the Ravens because he was playing well in his return, but it's going to be Kyle Hamilton, Ardarius Washington. They're going to put a lot of other guys, Brandon Stevens, Trey White, Marlon Humphrey. That secondary, it's next man up, or just guys who are up continuing to make plays, right? That's the other thing you can do. So I think that Baltimore has a big opportunity against Philly's offense, especially without Devontae Smith in there, assuming that is actually what happens. And we are going to assume that here because that is what the reports are telling us. Maybe something changes by the time I finish recording this and the game starts, but no Devontae Smith is a huge, huge, huge deal. So I like the matchup for Baltimore's defense, especially because of Saquon Barkley. It's strength on strength, right? There are going to be some reps that the Ravens defense wins. There are going to be some matchups that Saquon wins, right? I don't think you're going to continuously stop Saquon Barkley or anything, but I think you can hone in on A.J. Brown. But that's what the Ravens have to do, right? That's what they have to do. This defense isn't great at getting off the field on third down. They're in the bottom 10 of the league in doing that. Convert in your high leverage situations. Don't let Philly get long drives on you. And the big thing is shut down A.J. Brown. Shut down the biggest weapon in the passing game, which they have not been able to do for the most part all season. Jamar Chase goes off twice on you. You get Devontae Adams going off on you. We go on and on and on. The one that I was impressed with was CeeDee Lamb, right? That was the one that I was pretty impressed with. They didn't let CeeDee get anything for the most part. And Nate Wiggins, honestly, was in CeeDee Lamb's head, right? That was a big play fumble he had back in week 3. Again, it feels so long since we talked about that. But I think that I like the offense versus defense matchup for the Ravens. Defense for Ravens, offense for Philly. I actually like it. I'm not saying they're going to be perfect. They're going to give up points. There are going to be struggles here and there because Philly's offense is that high powered. Philly's offensive line is awesome. I think this game is going to be won or lost by either team by the offensive line. I've been pretty consistent about saying that throughout the week. Whichever offensive line plays better, I think that's the team that's going to win. Straight up. That's what it comes down to, in my opinion. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll talk about some final predictions. I got some bold ones, too, especially on offense. So stay tuned. We got a lot to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get 100 in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats of that play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. We're started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bets for this Ravens and Eagles game. Ravens opened up as 3-point home favorites. So if you like the Ravens, if you like the Eagles, be sure to pick your side over on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back. Our final segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher taking you up to game time here on this bonus edition game day episode. Ravens face off against the Eagles in week number 13. Big game for both teams, 100%. And I think for Baltimore, with the way that this AFC North is shaping up, with the way the playoffs are shaping up, Baltimore needs every win that they can get. Lamar Jackson, 23-1 against the NFC. Hopefully he improves that record to 24-1 so we can keep talking about my favorite stat, which is not my favorite stat, which is Daniel Jones being the only quarterback to defeat Lamar Jackson. But still, this is going to be, I think, I don't know which way I want to go. I guess I'll start off with my first bold prediction. Is it going to be a blowout, or is there going to be some level of a close game? I think I like this matchup better for the Ravens than I think some people do. I feel like people think it's going to be a super close game or, Eagles win. I'm going to go, this is a double-digit Ravens win. Not by a lot of double digits, not by a lot, but I'm going to say, wow, we're doing score prediction on the first part of the final segment here. I really must feel confident. I'm going to go 28-18. 28-18 is what I'm going to go. 10 points, 28-18. That's what I'm going to go. Because whenever I do the generic, 21-14, 3 touchdowns, very clean, that never works. So I'm going to see if it works this time for Baltimore at 28. So I'm going 28-18 Ravens. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I'm not trying to say that. I mean, there are scenarios where it could be. I'm not ruling that out. But I think Philly has done enough over their 7-game win streak to earn some respect. Where it's kind of the opposite of what happened last year with Philly, where they just collapsed on themselves late. They found themselves. They had a lot of drama early with Nick Sirianni and a bunch of other stuff going on. They've found themselves recently. But I do think that for the Ravens, they understand the magnitude of this game. They're going to get up for this game, I feel like. And while that might not result in a guaranteed win, sometimes they don't get up for games against lesser opponents. This is not a lesser opponent. It's so weird to say this, but it's kind of like reverse thinking, and I'm not sure I'm even alone in this, where sometimes I feel more confident in the Ravens against the better team because they've shown to historically get up against better teams and then to sleepwalk through games against teams that they don't respect or teams that they don't match up with or teams that have worse records or teams that are tanking, right? It feels like they play better against better teams, especially in the regular season. And so that's why my confidence is maybe a little higher than other people's. I get if you think the Ravens are going to be in a close game. I think that's probably the most likely scenario. But I'm getting bold here. Sometimes we get bold, sometimes we don't. We're going super bold. Offensively, I'm going to say this is the Rashad Bateman game. And, we've had that in the past. Even last week, Rashad had a good game with that long touchdown catch. But I'm going to say Rashad Bateman against the top-rated Philly pass defense has 2 touchdowns and 100-plus yards receiving. There's my bold prediction on offense. We're getting really bold today. Rashad Bateman, 100-plus yards, 2 touchdowns. And look, as we talked about, Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, those guys are really good. Really good. But I'm going to say Rashad Bateman gets the better of them. I'm going to say Derrick Henry outclasses Saquon Barkley. It's another one, which, again, is not that bold, honestly. I think either guy you could go with and you feel pretty confident. They're both super talented. But I'm going to say that Baltimore's offense matches up with Philly's defense better than Philly's offense matches up with Baltimore's defense. That is where that comes from for me. So I think that even though Philly has dogs on that interior, literally and figuratively, with some of those Georgia Bulldogs they got, man, I'll tell you. And the Ravens have some Georgia Bulldogs on their team too. They certainly do. Nick Moore, long snapper. Roquan, obviously, right? They have some Georgia Bulldogs too. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a Georgia Bulldogs picture after the game with all those Georgia guys. But still, Baltimore is going to have their hands full. Out of all the teams left on their schedule, this is the toughest one. This is the toughest team they have left to play. So this is essentially, if you want a tune-up playoff game, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one. Because you have 4 games left. You got Giants. You got Steelers. You got Browns. You got Texans on Christmas. Those are your games. This Philly team is the best team Baltimore's going to face for the remainder of the season. You want to get up for a game, you get up for this game. And usually Baltimore does. We're going to see how it all plays out for them because, man, I feel like there's a lot that can go right for them and there's a lot that can go wrong. This team is super unpredictable. I think that's one of the things that makes it so stressful watching them is that so many things can happen. But fast starts, clean up on the penalties, and just do your thing. Don't get in your own way. You know, it seems like very simple keys, but it's things that Baltimore has not been able to do either recently or season long. So they have paths to win here. They have a lot of them. They're a good team. You know, I think when people see the Ravens are facing off against a good team, it's like, oh, Philly is so good. Well, Baltimore's so good too. You know, the Ravens have to play the Eagles, but the Eagles have to play the Ravens, right? That's how that goes. So 2 good teams facing off. Game of the week after Thanksgiving. Crazy the holiday weekend's already coming to an end, but hopefully for the Ravens' sake, one last hurrah for the weekend as Baltimore hopefully pulls out a win against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's all I have for you here today, though, on this edition of Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in to the game day edition today. We'll be back here later, probably about 15 minutes after the final whistle, right around 15 or 30, who knows, breaking down everything that happened in the Ravens game, win, lose, and again, hopefully not a tie. So be sure on YouTube to like and subscribe on the way out, turn notifications on as well so you get notified whenever we go live or put out new content in an audio form. Be sure to hit that follow along and subscribe button as well as we put out the same show. It's both audio and video, so you're not missing out if you like to listen in audio form or watch in video form. Coming up again, it'll be our live show, so be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.